In June of 2009, a man named Erik Knudsen sat at his computer and created something. A tall, faceless figure in a black suit. He posted it to a forum, called it Slenderman. That was the beginning, supposedly. But here's what nobody can explain. There's a Reddit post with 289 upvotes describing an encounter with a tall, faceless entity in 1987. 22 years before Slenderman was invented. Unless he wasn't invented at all. May 31st, 2014. Waukesha, Wisconsin. A suburb so ordinary it hurts. 3 12-year-old girls have a sleepover. By morning, one of them will be left in a ditch with 19 stab wounds, crawling toward the road, barely breathing. Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weir, both 12, lured their friend Peyton Leutner into the woods behind a Walmart and stabbed her 19 times. One wound missed a major artery by less than a millimeter. When police asked why, the answer was the same from both girls. Slenderman. They believed, genuinely, completely believed, that if they killed Peyton, Slenderman would accept them, that they'd get to live in his mansion in the Nicolet National Forest. 2 children, who by all accounts were normal 6 months earlier, tried to commit murder for a fictional character. And look, that story alone is horrifying enough. But that's not why we're here. We're here because of what I found when I started digging into where Slenderman actually came from. June 10th, 2009. The Something Awful forums. A Photoshop contest. Create paranormal images. Erik Knudsen, posting under the name Victor Surge, submits 2 black and white photographs. Kids on a playground, and in the background, just barely visible, a tall figure with no face, impossibly long arms, wearing a dark suit. He adds a caption, something about 14 children going missing. The post explodes. Within weeks, Slenderman has a wiki, fan art, video games, the Marble Hornets web series, a full mythology built by thousands of anonymous users online. It's collaborative horror, crowdsourced nightmare fuel. And the story everybody tells is simple. Erik Knudsen made it up. Slenderman is fiction, created on a specific date by a specific person on a specific website. Case closed. Except, and here's where it gets really unsettling. What if I told you that nearly identical figures show up in folklore dating back to the 1500s? Not similar, not kind of like Slenderman. I'm talking tall, faceless, elongated limbs, stalks children near forests, wears dark clothing. The exact same thing, centuries before the internet existed. There's a concept in psychology called a tulpa, the idea that if enough people believe in something intensely enough, That belief gives it form, makes it real. Tibetan monks coined the term. And right now, in online paranormal communities, people are asking a question that sounds insane until you actually look at the evidence. Did Eric Knudsen create Slenderman? Or did he accidentally give a name to something that was already here? Germany. The 1500s. There are woodcuts, actual historical woodcuts, depicting a creature called the Großmann, the tall man, described in Germanic folklore as an impossibly tall figure with multiple long arms, no discernible face, found lurking at the edges of forests. Children who wandered too far from home were said to be taken by der Großmann. Their bodies were sometimes found impaled on tree branches. Other times they simply vanished. And look, I want to be careful here. Some skeptics argue these woodcuts are modern fabrications, planted online after Slenderman's creation to make the myth feel older. And fair enough, that's a valid criticism. But here's the thing. The woodcuts aren't the only evidence. Not even close. Morocco has its own version. They call it Sahlab. A tall, thin entity without features on its face, described in oral traditions passed down through generations in rural communities. Sahlab lurks in the spaces between buildings, in narrow alleyways, in the darkness at the edge of town. Moroccan parents warn children about Sahlab the same way German parents warned about their Großmann. Same height, same blank face, same targeting of children. But here's what nobody talks about. Morocco and 16th century Germany had essentially zero cultural exchange. These aren't connected traditions. They developed independently. Two cultures, separated by thousands of miles and hundreds of years, describe the exact same entity. Same proportions, same blank face, same behavior. That's not coincidence. That's a pattern. And I haven't even gotten to the part that actually scared me. Because those are old stories, easy to dismiss. What I can't dismiss is the eyewitness accounts from people who are still alive. Reddit's r/paranormal community. A post titled, I saw Slenderman. 289 upvotes. Hundreds of comments. The user describes seeing a tall, unnaturally thin figure standing at the tree line behind their childhood home. Smooth, featureless face. Arms that seemed too long. Dark suit. The encounter they describe happened in the early 2000s, years before Eric Knudsen posted anything. And they're not alone. Another user describes a recurring childhood nightmare from the 1990s. A figure with no face standing in their doorway, impossibly tall, having to bend to fit in the frame. They drew pictures of it as a kid. Their parents remember the drawings. The internet didn't create that memory. A third account, and this is the one that got to me, describes a camping trip in rural Pennsylvania in 1994. A family saw something standing between the trees, about 50 yards out. Father, mother, and 2 kids all saw it at the same time. Tall, thin, not moving, just watching. The father grabbed a flashlight, pointed it toward the figure. Nothing there. But the mother reportedly refused to camp again for the rest of her life. Now here's where it gets weird. I spent 3 weeks going through r/paranormal, r/the truth is here, r/humanoid encounters. I found over 40 accounts describing the same entity, and more than half of them describe encounters before 2009, before Eric Knutson's post, before the word Slenderman existed. These people didn't have a name for what they saw. They just knew it was tall, thin, faceless, and wrong. So let me lay this out. Germanic woodcuts from the 1500s. Moroccan oral traditions with no clear origin date. Over 40 first-hand accounts on Reddit alone, more than half predating the 2009 creation of Slenderman, all describing the same thing. And here's the question I can't get out of my head, the one I've been sitting with for weeks now. What if Eric Knudsen didn't invent anything? What if, on June 10th, 2009, he sat down at his computer, opened Photoshop, and without knowing why, pulled something out of his unconscious mind? Something that's been there, in all of us, for centuries. Carl Jung called them archetypes. Primal images hardwired into the collective unconscious. Shapes and fears so ancient they predate language itself. The shadow in the trees. The tall figure with no face. The thing at the edge of the forest that you were never supposed to look at. Jung argued these archetypes aren't invented, they're discovered. And if that's true, if Slenderman is an archetype, then Eric Knudsen didn't create a monster. He gave a monster a name. And here's what makes my stomach drop. After Knudsen's post went viral, after millions of people suddenly had a shared name and a shared image for this thing, the sightings didn't decrease. They multiplied exponentially, as if naming it made it stronger, as if acknowledging it gave it permission to be seen. The Waukesha stabbing wasn't the cause, it was a symptom. 2 12-year-old girls didn't lose their minds because of a Photoshop edit. They lost their minds because something in their heads recognized that figure, and it wouldn't let go. Here's what keeps me up at night. Every culture has this thing. The tall figure, the faceless watcher. Different names, different centuries, different continents, but always the same description. Always the trees, always the children. You can call it der Großmann, you can call it Sahlab, you can call it Slenderman. But the thing about giving something a name is that names are invitations. And right now, as of today, there are over 2.3 million Google results for Slenderman sighting. 2.3 million. You can't uninvent something that was never invented. You can't unsee something you were always supposed to see. And the next time you're driving past a tree line at dusk and you see something standing there that's just a little too tall, a little too still, you'll have a name for it now. And that's exactly the problem. If you made it this far, do me a favor. Subscribe and hit that bell. This channel goes deep into the stories that nobody else wants to touch. And if you want to see another story, even darker than this one, click the video on your screen right now. I'll see you there.